Hello everyone, welcome back to Two's Productions. So today we're going to be doing something that I haven't really done before on this channel, but I think could be a fun idea. So recently I picked up Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch, and before you crucify me, yes, I did play this before, just on the Wii U, and I'm replaying it on the Switch because of that Target thing that happened with the coupons and whatnot. If you don't know about that, don't worry about it, but if you do, that's how it happened. But I'm replaying the game, and it got me thinking, what would I want to see from a sequel to Breath of the Wild? That's right, today I'm going to be bringing you my thoughts on a potential idea for a Zelda sequel. Now, obviously this is my opinion, this is obviously not something that's going to happen, and some of the ideas are probably way off there, but I think it'd be fun to speculate and give an idea of what a potential Breath of the Wild sequel could look like. So let's get some of the main changes I'm going to be making first off out there. So first and foremost, I think that they should continue with the engine and the assets that they have of Breath of the Wild. I think there should really be a Majora's Mask type deal where you reuse assets, if you can, you reuse the engine, you don't have to build a whole new engine. I think that Breath of the Wild laid a really solid foundation, and to use it for just one game seems pointless to me. I feel like they don't have to, but they should reuse it because it was so successful and so much fun that I would love to see it brought back again. The second thing, and this is probably the biggest change in this, is that you will not be playing as Link in this game, as far as my fan version of it goes. Link is not the playable character. Instead, we'll be taking the role of Ganondorf in this game. Now, I'll get to why and story purpose a little bit, but you'll also be given the choice to play as Sheik from Ocarina of Time. Obviously, this will be a new Sheik, of course. I do think it's about time that Zelda learned from other fantasy games, for example, Skyrim, where you can choose your gender and all this other stuff. And yes, there's a simple caveat, if you could just put Link and Linkle, that's fine too, but I think for the story purposes I have, this will be a lot more interesting, and I think it'll be a lot more fun for people. Originally, I had toyed with the idea of also allowing you to change races. I think it'd be fun to be able to play as like a Goron, or a Zora, or a Rito, or all these other types of crazy fun races they have in Zelda, but I don't think that would actually work out because they would all probably play very differently, and it just doesn't work for this game, but I would like to see that implemented in a Zelda game in the future somehow. So down to like the story of the game. So I think that this story should, in my version, and also I do think that the next Zelda game might actually take place here, in the period before the 100 years that Link was asleep. Now, I'm talking way before. We're talking the people who built the Guardians, because we know, as the king tells us in Breath of the Wild,
to know Calamity Ganon's true form, one must know the story from an age-long past. The Demon King was born into this kingdom, but his transformation into malice created the horror you see now. Stories of Ganon were passed from generation to generation in the form of legends and fairy tales. But there was also a prophecy. The signs of a resurrection of Calamity Ganon are clear, and the power to oppose it lies dormant beneath the ground. We decided to heed the prophecy and began excavating large areas of land. It wasn't long before we discovered several ancient relics made by the hands of our distant ancestors. These relics, the divine beasts, were giant machines piloted by warriors. We also found the Guardians, an army of mechanical soldiers who fought autonomously. This coincided with ancient legends, oft repeated throughout our land. We also learned of a princess with a sacred power, and her appointed knight, chosen by the sword that seals the darkness. It was they who sealed Ganon away, using the power of these ancient relics.
So we don't actually know who built the Guardians, we don't actually know who built the Divine Beasts, and these are the people that I think should be the focus of this game. So I think it'll give us the same world as Breath of the Wild, but it's going to be way in the past. You're going to be able to do a lot more stuff with it, you're going to get more creative, and you're not going to have to be revisiting the same places as we did there. Obviously things are going to change, people are going to change. there still will be places like Death Mountain and Zora's Domain and all this other stuff. We're not going full Skyward Sword here, but it'll be more like that. We'll be seeing like how they started off and how they got to the point they are in Breath of the Wild. And I think this is also really interesting because the Guardians will be on your side instead of being against you. You'll have Hyrule not being destroyed and decrepit like it is in Breath of the Wild. It's going to be complete 180. So all the things that we didn't really get to know in Breath of the Wild, for example, who made the Guardians and all this other stuff, we're going to get that in this game. And I think that's a fun idea to play off of. So Ganondorf and Sheik's roles in this game are going to basically be Link in Breath of the Wild. I think that Ganondorf should be the knight of Zelda, or the princess, which in this case will be Sheik. I don't want her to have the dual identity thing that Sheik did in Ocarina of Time. I don't want this Sheik to be Zelda. I don't want the traditional Link and Zelda to be in this game. There is a character that is an equivalent of Link, and this character obviously will be an equivalent of Zelda, but they're not going to be called Link and Zelda. I think and no, it should go for just this game. And I think the whole idea is that he is this knight that is the same position that Link is in 100 years from now, or whatever many years from now Breath of the Wild takes place, and obviously that's the same role. And then Sheik, of course, the reason why I have her being both is because I think that it'd be fun for her to be the princess, but also taking a warrior role. So the Sheik identity is still her hidden identity. It's still like, not everybody knows that Sheik is the princess, and I think that there's a couple characters that will know, of course, Ganondorf being one of them, but not everybody. And I think the both of them should travel together. This allows for a couple of things. First off, it gives you the chance of, like I said, switching between which character you want to play as. Maybe you want to play as Ganondorf, maybe you want to play as Sheik. And I think that you should be able to switch between the two throughout the game. At any, like, shop or stuff like that, you could switch between which character you want to play with. This also brings up the possibility of multiplayer. And I think that this is something that Breath of the Wild could have built on. And since we have that base engine and base block to start from, I think it'd be fun to add that in. Because Breath of the Wild is a super fun and amazing game, but how much more fun would it be to be able to play this with a friend? Now, originally I had thought that maybe they should bring in drop in, drop out multiplayer like they did with the upcoming Pokemon Let's Go, but I think that might not work as well now that I think about it. So I think it should be basically online multiplayer instead. So if you're playing as Ganon, your friend can play as Sheik on a different Switch, and y'all will be in the same world doing the same things. If they can find a way to make drop-in, drop-out local co-op work, that'll be great, and that should be in there. But I think with cameras and stuff, it might be a little bit weird, so I think it's just better to have it be online drop-in, drop-out multiplayer. I think it would be more fun. So the main enemy of this game will still be Calamity Ganon, because we know Calamity Ganon has escaped before, and Zelda and the hero put them away with the Divine Beast and everything. We know about this. So that's the storyline we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at Ganondorf and Sheik going around the world trying to find the champions, the first ever champions. And they are going to be pilots for the Divine Beast in order to seal Calamity Ganon. Throughout the game, Ganondorf is obviously going to be called on to Calamity Ganon. It's going to be influencing him and changing him throughout the storyline to eventually become the villain we know. Now, as for how does Calamity Ganon get off? Well, I think that because Calamity Ganon is calling to Ganondorf, he should be the one that releases it in the beginning of the game, and that's why it's around and everything, and they're all trying to seal it back up now. And, of course, they're going to need the help of the champions. So who are the champions in this version? Since, obviously, Mipha, Daruk, Revali, and Urabosa aren't around at this point in time. So they are a new set of champions. And those characters, I think, you're going to hopefully like who I've picked out. So first off, we have Tingle. Tingle is going to be a champion, and I think that Tingle should be a Sheikah scientist, and he's going to be the guy who made the Divine Beasts and who made the Guardians. He's going to be the guy who invented the whole thing and the whole shebang. And I think it works for him to be a Sheikah in this game because we see, like, the professor, the scientist lady we see in Breath of the Wild and Impa, you know, they kind of look like a Tingle-esque character, so I think it'd be cool to have Tingle be one of them, and I think it'd be really funny to have him be the creator of the Divine Beasts. Then I think we're going to pick up where parallels here, so we're going to have Medley from Wind Waker, that same character, you know, obviously not the same universe one, but that kind of character, in replace of Revali. We're going to have the Goron equivalent to Daruk. I didn't want to just pick up like Darunia and say it's Darunia, because I feel like, one, Darunia already exists in this timeline, because whichever timeline it is, it connects back to Ocarina of Time, so that would be weird. So I think it should just be a Goron, and I don't have a specific name for him. He'll be an original character completely. Maybe he's like an ancestor of Daruk, and that could be cool. And then the last one I think we should add in is the Skull Kid. And now this will be a good, well, I guess Skull Kid was kind of good, it's just Majora's Mask, but whatever. But this Skull Kid is going to not be a weird forest thing. Well, I mean, he will be a weird forest thing, but he's not like the only one. I think he should be a Kokori. And I think that the Kokori in this game shouldn't just be what they were in Ocarina of Time, but more in the phase of becoming the Koroks. I think that that's still the progression like we saw in Wind Waker that should be happening. So he should be forward from he was in Ocarina of Time and more to a Korok at this point. So he's like basically a Deku shrub at this point. And yes, I know there was already a Skull Kid back then. We're not going to call him the Skull Kid. We're going to give him a name in this. I don't know what it will be, but we'll give him a name in this, and he'll be in more of a character, but he's supposed to be that kind of Skull Kid type analog. So to recruit these champions, you're going to have to go to their homes. You're going to have to visit these places just like we had to do in Breath of the Wild, and in order to get them to be a part of your crew, you're going to have to solve some problems for them. So instead of having to fight the divine beasts and get into the dungeons and everything, you're just going to have boss enemies you're going to take care of. Stuff like King Dodongo and stuff like that. They'll be terrorizing the village for whatever reason. There'll be an issue you have to help out with, and you do, and they join you. And then I want to bring in a mechanic that we had in at least the Wind Waker games, where if some of you remember, there was at least one dungeon for each of these two characters, where you got to play as Medley and Makar. I think instead of Ganondorf and Sheik going into the Divine Beasts and doing the dungeon and whatnot, we should get to play as the 4 champions. So for example, Tingle will have to be going through his, and you'll get to play as Tingle, and you'll get to see what his unique moves are and whatnot. And it'll just be for the dungeon. And at the end of the dungeon, he'll have to fight a boss. And I think that those bosses should be spirit forms of the 4 champions we have in Breath of the Wild. Even though it's not actually them, it'll just be like spirits, ghosts, things that the divine beast or the goddess has chosen to place there in order to make sure the champions are worthy of being the riders of the divine beast, even though Tingle made them. You know, it's whatever. It's just a basic storyline purpose to be there. And the reason I want them to look like the champions from Breath of the Wild is that I think it'd be cool to be fighting those champions as opposed to be fighting just Blight Ganons and stuff like that. I think it'd be much more fun. So I think that could be a cool way to do it, and you get to play as 4 other characters. So you still get the playing as different kinds of characters in this game, but it's not like a full-time thing, it's just for the dungeons. And then of course, for all of this, the champions succeed, you get to Divine Beasts, you do all that fun stuff, you hop in, you go to fight Calamity Ganon, it's time to get it done. And during the fight, Ganondorf succumbs to Calamity Ganon. He is the final boss, regardless of if you've been playing as him or not. If you have been playing as him the whole time, your weapons and everything will be just transferred to Sheik, and you'll be playing as Sheik. It'll be fine. You're not going to lose anything. It's not going to be like, oh, your 0-powered Sheik is up against this thing now. No, you'll be fine. And in this moment, we learn that Sheik is the descendant of the hero of time, and that she has the power to seal Calamity Ganon. So with the help of the Divine Beasts, boom, it blasts Calamity Ganon, and he is sealed forever, of course, killing Ganondorf in the process, so it does give a bittersweet ending here. Now, I did say that Link was going to be playing a role in this game, and here's where he comes in. I think that this version of Link, which we won't be calling Link, we'll be calling him like Ravio or something like that. Well, we'll call him Ravio for the sake of the video, but I don't know, whatever name they want to give him. So Ravio is going to be the Knight of the King, and because Ganondorf and the princess shouldn't have been doing what they were doing in sealing Calamity Ganon away, history was rewritten, and instead of it going down in history that Ganondorf and Sheik were the ones to fight Calamity Ganon and destroy it, they changed it to have Sheik and Ravio being it, and they removed Sheik's history as being a warrior. They just say that the princess and the hero, and that's how it goes down. Ravio will play a more of a role in the game. I think that he should be the one who takes the role of like the king from the first game, and he'll be the one that shows you the shrines and everything like that. He'll be that kind of like Impa guiding type NPC throughout the game. And the Breath of the Wild tunic that we see or the Tunic of the Wild that we see in Breath of the Wild, that's his original tunic. He was the original hero, which he was a hero. He helps out during the game, but you know, He wasn't the guy who helped seal things away. That was just changed because people were like, listen, we can't put out that the royal family's knight was a bad guy. We can't do that. We gotta hide that away. So that's why that discrepancy is in Breath of the Wild, and that's, it was just a cutscene. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I also think that, this does bring up some issues, for example, Korok seeds in shrines, but I do think I can solve that, at least a little bit. I think if we replace the Korok seeds, because obviously Koroks don't exist yet at this point, if we replace that with, like, the Minish, or, like, fairies, it'll do the same thing. So it'll just be, instead of you getting Korok seeds, you'll get some other item for a fairy, or some other item for a Minish. It'll be fine. I don't think that's too big of a deal. And instead of having shrines, I think that we should still kind of have shrines. So instead of it being something that was built by the Sheikah, because I think they only build those after the Calamity and everything to test Link. I don't know if that was there before. If they were, whatever. But it doesn't really matter. But I think they should be tests of strength and whatnot, the same way they are in Breath of the Wild. But the reason there is because it's how Sheikah become warriors. So instead of us having to get the Forest 4 shrines in order to get the paraglider, you're going to be doing those for story purposes, because Ganondorf has to do that in order to become the knight. And Zelda, or Sheik, has to do that in order to become a Sheikah warrior, which again, only Ganondorf, Link, and the champions are going to know about, no one else. But that's why she's doing it, and that's why Ganondorf is doing it. There has to be parallels, because someone could be playing as either or. And that's why they have to do all that stuff. So you'll still get everything the same as it was in Breath of the Wild. The shrines will be all over the place. It'll just be tests of the goddess or something like that to replace it. And I think that the sequel should focus a little bit more on story and have a little bit more story present, but I don't want it to be restricting. I don't want to take away the open world nature of Breath of the Wild. I still think that you should be able to go get the champions in whatever direction you want and do all that stuff, but you just learn more about them while you're there, that's all. And of course, since you get to play as them, you get to see what they're like a little bit more. You get to learn a little bit more about the king. You get to learn a little bit more about Ganondorf and Sheik, and of the hero, or Ravio, or whatever we want to call him. You get to learn more about these kinds of things. I think it'd also be cool if, like, because the Link analog, or the King's Knight, Ravio, is like the great ancestor of Link from Breath of the Wild, and this kind of stuff. It'd just be fun, and I think this idea is interesting. And I think that the ability for co-op and all this other stuff is a lot to add to it. And I know it's weird, and I know it's like, oh, what? You won't be playing as Link? That's crazy. Nintendo will never do that. And it's true. Nintendo will never do this because it just breaks every convention of the series. But I think because Breath of the Wild already reinvented Zelda, but also remained completely true to Zelda, I think they can take a little bit more risk with the next one, because it's like, hey, well, we already reinvented the wheel, right? So we don't have to completely reinvent it again, but we can change a couple things around now because the wheel has been changed. I don't know. Maybe this is all crazy. I know the idea doesn't really make that much sense, and I probably didn't do the best job explaining it, but I think it'd be fun to get Ganondorf's quest as a, it's like Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, but Ganondorf's quest. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I thought this was a great idea, and like I said, probably didn't do the best job explaining it, but I think hopefully you guys got the message somewhere in there between my babbling. And I'll see you guys next time. Remember to like, comment, favorite, subscribe. What do you think of this kind of video? I have another one planned for ARMS 2. I've been planning that for a long time, just never got around to making it, so I should probably do that. What do you guys think? Do you want to see how I would do Super Mario Odyssey 2 and that kind of stuff? Just for the record, if I do a Super Mario Odyssey 2 video, it will feature Ward, because now I'm gonna do that. Yeah, you don't have a choice in that one. And we're doing ARMS and we're doing ARMS and Super Mario Odyssey 2 videos eventually. So after that, what do you also want to see? I guess. Remember to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. We'll see you guys next time. And what do you think of my idea for Breath of the Wild 2? Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't know. You decide. See you next time.